Hi there. My name is Pastor Dave Bryan. I'm the senior pastor of the Church of Glad Tidings and the Embassy of Heaven in Yuba City, California. And it is time to roar. And we have a guest on with us, a good friend, somebody I really respect and am thankful for his friendship. And that's James Martinez. And he's coming to us from somewhere far away. He's always somewhere far away in some nation doing some some Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy episode. But anyway, we've been talking about Singularity. We've been talking about what's happening with um, the uh, the the attempted manipulation and control of people through technology, and what the end game is, and so James has been unpacking that. We've done two sessions. This is number three. I hope you'll listen to the other two, where he lays a foundation for this. But James, thank you for being here again. And today, let's move toward an understanding of what's actually happening with all the cell phone towers going up, the 5G, and then again 6G. And I'd also like you to comment on what actually was behind what we call the COVID con, and the why it was, and most of the world doesn't know this yet, but why it was that the COVID con as a pandemic and 5G rolled out of Wuhan at the same time. And, while everybody was sheltering in place, 5G towers were going up, you know, um, all over the world overnight. What's behind all that, and what should we be aware of, James?
Well, I'll go to the 5 and 6G thing first. I was given by one of the BCI committee members a very lengthy technical paper on what 6G is and what it's going to do. And essentially, from me looking at that, I was looking at it in terms of law, neurocognitive law, and it affects biological impact and then neural impact on our thinking process. And basically, 6G, it's happening with 5G, I'm seeing already, but with 6G, you're having the integration of the beginning stages of pure cybernetic new forms of human beings because they're interfaced with um, technology that's either been sprayed on them or that they've consumed uh, through the nanotechnology injections. Thereby, they end up basically operating as uh, John Doe 2.0 cybernetic style with behavioral and neural temporal effects that control mood and cognitive awareness as
Mm.
people interface with their computers. Because most of the technology that people are interfacing with, their phones, which have been coercively put on people's bodies by our own free will, I might add, are mechanisms that are tools to basically be fastened to your body in the future. Most of the phones that are going to come out, you're going to see them coming out from the phone that is now. In fact, it'll this will be the standard phone, and then a phone will come out that will fold, and then eventually a phone's going to come out and it's going to be like something that you would wear on your sleeve,
Mm.
bendable, and it will be fastened to the body. And people will naturally do that as they've naturally, by their own free will, taken these devices and carried them around with them. So
Right.
that's the servo mechanism. Like if you're on a rowboat, the boat is the delivery mechanism, and the row is the servo mechanism that allows the boat to get where it needs to go. And in order to induce and hijack the central nervous system, you have to have a servo mechanism put in place that people are already conditioned to respond to, because I mean, as we've discussed before, um, people generally feel as if a limb has been taken away from them when their phone is taken away from them. They feel
Right.
something's
Right.
wrong,
Right.
and this has been very, very tactically planned to make your phone um, run and control your life and decision making patterns. And
Yeah.
it's ultimately something that was designed to train you for telepathy. That was the
Yeah.
it's a design tool to create telepathy, which means when you're fused with the brain and the computer, then you will have telepathy, but you will no longer have privacy. You won't have any neurocognitive privacy. And when 6G comes in, essentially from the paper that I was given and knew about, I was looking at the cognitive effects, but it basically turns you into a transistor for the cloud and for using the physical body as a means to power the cloud, kind of like the Matrix, basically, when it was shown in that movie. But remember that, and I emphasized this before, um, we're participating. We don't have to
Yeah.
participate.
Right.
There's going to be other phone companies that have come out that are going to compete with all this mess, and Apple and all these other. When people have found out what they've really done and what they've um, aided and abetted in, when they really understand it, these companies they won't have any. Um, their public image will be permanently destroyed,
Yeah.
permanently. And
Yeah.
I don't care how much Apple has, or Android, or any of these other companies that are running this thing and aiding and abetting it. Uh, they're gonna lose millions because
Yeah.
people just won't like them at all,
Right. Right.
and they'll
Right.
rebel against them.
Right. So the question, of course, is how do we um, educate people to that point before it's too late? But that reminds me of something that I wanted you to weigh in on. I was in 2019. I was in India. Heard about what was going on with the rollout of the COVID pandemic. Was told I had to leave on the next plane or I would be locked down in India. Came home to this whole mess with the COVID con and the I don't know why it was so extremely obvious to some of us, but nothing about that made sense. It was all obviously a ploy to try to control us. It actually set up control structures in every aspect of life, and I frankly was chagrined and dismayed that most pastors in America didn't even blink. They just said, "Oh, well, let's mask up and social distance and shelter in place and blah 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 blah." I think you know this, James, but when we heard about it, we made a bunch of big posters that said, "We will not comply with any government or medical mandates that violate our basic rights." And I don't. We never even considered shutting down. Actually, when they said that we couldn't meet, we announced that we will be open 24/7 until further notice. And it wasn't that we suddenly thought of a bunch of things to do. It was a protest against you don't have the right to shut us down. We're not going to comply with that. But but how sad now? Often, James, I have people uh, crying and saying, we thought it was the right thing to do. I had a mother not too long ago. She was crying. She said, I made my kids, my grandkids get the vaccines. Some of them died with myocarditis, and all kinds of stuff. But what I want you to talk about for those who somehow might still question what was behind the COVID vaccine, I want you to talk about the nanotechnology that was in them and how that is part of this synchronized plan to control people. So, what can you tell us about nanotechnology and how it connects with 5 and 6G and this plan to control the minds of men?
First statements about putting devices in the body that were very public were done by the former first DARPA head. Her name is Regina Dugan, and she was consulting at a conference for Google, and she said that um, by swallowing nano devices, um, ultimately, and she sold it as a health and aging uh, perception perspective, that they could ultimately um, alter biology and essentially make you live longer if
Wow.
nano technology, nanobots were put in the body to act as transistors to examine organs to see what the level of decay was on organs and so forth. So it was sold and talked about in a very positive, like, hey, look what we're actually doing. I mean, it was actually very deceptive because if they're making public statements about something, hypothetically, they're way down the road on it. They're using it. They're not hypothetically. They're way past.
Yeah.
So nanotechnology and that very tiny nano scale are technological things that were used and put into the kill shots to self-assemble and be utilized for radio response or electromagnetic influence, so that the body could itself actually be a transistor and experimental device for mind control and or controlling a human being with the BCI interface. So it's a component. There, if you're creating a synthetic person, the basically the fusion of the brain computer interface and whatnot, the body's got to be equipped to handle that. And it's got to be done in a way that is something called micro escalation, where you slowly put into piece by piece by piece over a period of time so that the body is assimilated. And then ultimately, the people that are now property of the designers of the nanotechnology that took these shots are acting essentially as transistors to power the cloud and also act uh, and be used as basically science experiments to modify and perfect human control over a subject, over a person.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, the same
Now,
thing that Jose Delgado was talking about when he wrote his book about a psycho-civilized society in the future, because he was
mm,
part of the neuroscience long ago.
yeah. Now these I know people the average person out and about in America is so far removed from where you are, having lived a whole life with the intrigue of things happening beneath the surface and high level science and whatnot. But I know a lot of people just they didn't believe on nanotechnology because they just couldn't imagine something microscopic that was too small to see with the eye. They couldn't imagine how that could be used in technology. And so they just dismissed the whole thing. It was just too much to wrap their brain around. And sort of, if I could say it this way, it's like looking at the injection and just a little bit of liquid. How could that possibly be used to control me? But but it can be. And tell us a little bit about the possibilities of them remaining in the system and even self-assembling with the upgrades and, as people went in for their boosters and whatnot, and accumulated not only through injection, but also through shedding and whatnot. So unpack that a little bit, and where has that left people, and is there any known resolve for that?
I got asked by that. I read about that 3 times a day from messages that were sent to me, ironically.
Uh, wow.
Um, and I have heard about countermeasures for this, and I know some people that know about that specifically. But I have not seen 100% proof that it is actually removing the nanotechnology from the body yet. I'm not saying that I don't believe my colleagues. I'm just saying I want to see the data
Yeah.
and see the
Right.
blood
Right.
to
Yep. I
determine
get it.
that. Is
I
it
get it.
possible to fix that situation? Yes, because I know that there's advanced technology medical that is going to completely alter everything, including the aging process and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
We're in Star Trek right now, and
Yeah.
people need to realize that because
Yeah.
uh, one of the things I mentioned in another interview was that in 2025 and onward, you're going to see the biggest mental health crisis of all time because people are not going to know what to believe.
Oh
And
boy, it's
yeah,
it's
they don't
beginning
know
to
what to
happen.
believe.
Yep.
Yes, because some people, just the subjects that you and I are talk about, they can't handle that at all.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
not their
They
thing.
can't. They
Yeah,
can't handle it. And these days, with deep fake technology,
yeah,
you don't know if that's something that President Trump actually said.
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe you would know more about it, but it seems like there is um, no no safeguards at all on the internet. Uh, for instance, all these medical respected medical people that seem to be appearing in ads talking about this miracle cure, and you research that, and it's not even them. It is
yeah.
them, but it's not something that they
Yes,
actually did.
because
It,
yeah,
it's
okay.
it's
That's a
their
trap. That's
it's
a
their
trap being
visage.
set up. It's
Yep.
a trap. It's a trap because they need to create a reason to bring in BCI biometrics identification so that
Mm.
you can see the difference between what's real and what's not. That's why
Oh,
they're going to create this crisis by creating a situation where we don't know what's real and what's not. And then eventually they'll say, well, the only way to fix that is if we
I,
have
I see.
biometric
I see.
identification. So people are being played. They're being
Right.
played because they're creating this problem and it'll become so profuse. There'll be some international scandal or something will happen, and
Yep.
that the only way to resolve this was to fuse everybody and get all the biometrics uploaded into
Yeah.
the cloud. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing.
Wow.
That's what,
So, Michael Flynn says this often, but it seemed to be true. Everything is a psyop. So you mentioned people not knowing what to believe or what not to, and of course that's the result of living in an artificial world. The people may not even be people. They may be remakes on another person that look like that. It may be somehow that the visage is that person and the voice dynamics is that person, but that person in real life never actually said that. But you have
correct.
a video,
Yeah,
and
I've said, and I'll tell you right now because this is something that's just happened that I was made aware of by people in Europe, actually in an office in London that is self putting together a whole neurocognitive legal team that they're actually you can clone yourself now in the form you can take Pastor Dave, and you can clone yourself and you can upload it into a system, and that can do your advertising for you. And it can
wow,
represent you as an expert. You can
wow,
be an expert clone yourself, and then have the expert go out and do the consultations with everybody online while you're out on the yacht or whatever.
Wow.
So this is being done by um, it's the people behind Palantir, the money behind that. So they're you're people are breaking away from identity from this. It's to fracture identity.
Yeah.
So when you fracture identity in a way like this, the effects that are going to be seen on culture haven't really been full blown. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's just phase one of it.
Mm.
And it's the plan is uh, quite extensive on what that is because it was brought up to be by lawyers, and I said, so wait a minute, we're going to have to put a trademark on my digital identity, a registered trademark, a copyright, and then is that what does that mean if I'm cloned and I say something that's bad advice? Who gets sued? And is that
Yeah.
a programming response, or is that up to the company that's doing the cloning of the identity? All this stuff, and what's pathetic is you got these lawyers that they don't know what they're talking about. They've never faced this stuff before, and they're making policy decisions
Right.
for you, for everybody else, without your consent or even knowing anything about it. That's the part that I insist on telling the public that this is going on and you need to participate in this because they're going to decide what reality is to you. They're
Mhm.
deciding now because they feel like it.
Yeah. 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 It's a world that we've never lived in before, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Everything's
there's
new and
I will say this,
strange.
it's very important. There's a quote that Marshall McLuhan said, and I've said it before, only puny secrets need protection. Big secrets are protected by public incredulity, which means they just can't believe it. They don't
Yeah.
really realize that we're in Star Trek. We have
Right.
technology that's like thousands of years ahead of where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're basically, when you look out into the world, it's like an antique store, really.
Yeah.
Obsolete technology,
Yeah.
obsolete medical hair, obsolete. We're in a living in a very obsolete, fake. It's not even up to date the technology that we have, but that technology has been hidden and packed away from everybody behind the national security curtain. When the United States or what the corporation broke in half in
Mhm.
47 and CIA was brought in, the whole thing changed, and the space program and everything is tied into this whole thing because
Yeah.
they stole the world through the internet, through the electrocution of money. When they introduced electricity to money, that's how they stole the world because they were hypothecating. And when computers were introduced to the banks, they created more debt, digital debt. And that since our currency was not backed by anything, it created gazillions in debt that allowed certain people to come in who own that debt and the creation of that debt to come in and buy everything, which is what BlackRock did. They did it by fraud.
Yeah.
And they got
Yeah.
everybody convinced that they got all this money when it was
Yeah.
all done through fraud.
Yeah.
That's a because I'm dealing with people in the quantum space having to do with banking. And I you can't have accounting in banking anymore with quantum. None. So what is money going to be? What
Yeah.
is commerce going to be? What is contract law going to be? And don't listen to all the authority figures deciding what it's going to be for you because they don't know what it's going to be either. The discussion is not happening with the people that are will ultimately make the whole thing work, and that's the general public. That's the side I'm on because we're the bosses, not these
Yeah.
guys. We put a lot of these people in power, and we can take them out of power as well. And let me tell you something: more than writing up any policy or getting signatures, millions of signatures, whatever. In this economy, like I've mentioned before, it's more important somebody's image
Yeah.
digitally
Yeah.
than anything else. That's where people's values are.
Yeah.
So if their image is destroyed by the public, like for instance, Candace Owens destroyed Macron's image in France and all over the world, and now they're suing her, right?
Yeah.
So it's the image that they're concerned about, because
Yeah.
the public, the people that are doing this to us, they got huge egos. They have fixed perspectives. A lot of them are disassociated. These are the most unhealthy people in these key positions. You have no
Yeah.
idea. This is one of the things that Walter Bower explained to me in detail about what we referred to as the disease of witchcraft. That's the people that have all the money, all the power, and everything, and they're just in a completely different universe. But the thing is they're all inbred.
Yeah.
They're
Did you
inbred
call it the disease of?
witchcraft.
That's what I thought you said. I'd never heard that before. That's a great slogan.
Yeah, because they have problems
Witchcraft.
with the if when you own billions, you don't have any friends anymore.
Yeah.
You can't talk to anybody. You can't trust anybody. You have to look over
Yeah.
your back 24 hours a day. You can't have children because they may be killed. You are
Yeah. Or
servants to a
kidnap. Yeah.
system. And so these are the people that are making the decisions and
Yeah.
their values. Like nobody can tell me that Peter Thiel is missing a few lug nuts in the brain because he's got about 48 brain cells working. And when you see him in these conversations that he's having about participating in the what Palantir is going to do, which is basically brain surveillance, they'll be in your body. How he feels about being the Antichrist and having a complete fit on camera and not know what to say, not know how to process it, not know anything about what he's doing and why he's doing it and
Mm.
what it means.
Wow. A lot happening. Let me ask you this, James, in terms of like cyborgs or even uh, you know carb synthesized carbon life forms that look exactly like, say, Hillary
Yeah,
Clinton or
these are going to be the robots that come out in the future. First, they're bringing out all the AI to get everybody conditioned to use that and have a relationship with it. Then they're going to include it all the robots, and then the robots are going to come and take all the jobs. And then people are going to enjoy it because those robots are going to be really friendly. They're going to understand you. They're going to answer all your questions. They're going to entertain you. They're going to do everything for you so that you don't really need to do anything for yourself. Because remember, Carl Schwab said, you will have nothing and you will own and you'll be happy.
yeah,
Well, he didn't
yeah,
give all the addendum to what that means. He
yeah,
didn't say, oh,
right,
by the way, you're going to give up your brain. You're going to give up your money. You're
yeah,
not going to
right,
own anything. And we're going to terraform this planet around you. And you're going to agree to do it. That's
yeah,
why Noah Harari makes these super arrogant uh,
very arrogant,
declarations that animals are just useless eaters and we all don't matter and just all of you
right,
get out of the way. You're not
right,
needed anymore. When they're right,
right,
they don't need us anymore because they're bringing in the robot class, and that
yeah,
will ultimately change human relationships as already has already, so that people will not pair bond anymore.
yeah,
They'll pair bond with a machine, but they're not going to pair bond with you. And they're not going to
yeah,
pair bond with your wife or your child. They're interfering with all of this. So they're
mm,
taking away what it means to be human. Now,
right,
I was on a call with Greg Braden, who's authored many books. He's a great speaker. He's speaking, I believe, today. And I was on a conference call with about 300 other people. Some of them were scientists, authors. All these people are saying, wow, it looks like that we need to celebrate our humanness again and come together and embrace all of us in the circle of life, that how special we are, because we don't have
imagine
any
that,
self-esteem at all to allow
yeah,
this.
yeah,
And it can be the great unification happening right
yeah,
now, the
yeah,
spiritual unification, which is
yeah,
what I'm going. Well, that's where I want to go with this,
yeah,
because ultimately, uh, the discussion that's being had, and with the people that have stolen all the money and that control society and that are dealing with advanced species and so forth, is that we don't matter anymore and we need to get out of the way and we don't even have a right to be here. No,
right,
no, that discussion needs to include us. What public needs to be on the World Economic Forum. In
right,
fact, there should be another forum that's set up equally with the same amount of money with civilians that are
yeah,
the human economic forum, and have that all these discussions there, because Elon Musk is not in charge as much as everybody thinks he is. He's
yeah,
not.
yeah,
He answers to people.
yeah.
And he's
And those,
aiding and abetting this entire thing and trying to convince everybody and warn everybody while he's aiding and abetting the entire process of the
yeah,
brain computer interface that he's telling you, well, this is a good thing to do because of this, and we're already here at this point, so it's too late, and da da da. And I'm just a guy that just wants to go to Mars, and I don't even realize that we already have people over there and on the moon, and he doesn't know anything about the secret space program or anything. I haven't talked to anybody and doesn't know anything, and we're all bowing down to him because he has money.
yeah. Now, Elon Musk, we just had a conference here we called Rev 17, and we had a number of people. We were focusing on anti trafficking. Kathy O'Brien was one of our speakers. She's the poster girl for surviving MK Ultra with the CIA and whatnot. And so uh, there is talk about Elon Musk having been MK Ultra and being part of the CIA community. Uh, can you comment on that, or do you know anything about it? Or
I can't comment on it accurately other than to say if I need to meet them in person. I
okay,
not through a digital interface, not at some
right,
stupid meeting with everybody's kissing his ass. I need to meet
okay,
with him privately so I can examine the pathology of a person
yeah,
because
yeah,
I need to see the micro muscle movements. I need to see
yeah,
how their retinas respond. I need to see their physical language. I need to understand the breathing. I need to see how they respond to stimulus
yeah,
because I know some of the codes, cues, and triggers, and I
yeah,
know some of them respond indifferently. You don't even have to know the code to see the response. And some people, if
right,
you're trained in it,
yeah, as you are, yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that. Now, the you've commented on different technologies. You've commented on people that are targeted individuals. Um, it wasn't that long ago that I first learned about a targeted individual. I mean, relatively speaking, it was probably a decade ago, something like that. But anyway, we do spiritual warfare deliverance conferences. The last one we did, we actually had a breakout session for targeted individuals, and I imagine it's like anything else. There are those that really are, and those that, for whatever reasons, imagine that they would want to be included in that group. But the point is,
exactly.
um, yeah, but you have that in all
Yeah,
divisions of
yeah, because we
humankind,
have a victim commercialization culture. We're
right?
victims of whatever. They prop themselves up and then they become professional victims.
Right,
And they sell
right.
books and they run around and say how screwed up they are.
Right. Right. So there's a book, I don't know if you read it, it's called Addicted to Recovery, but it's talking about people that that's their life, right?
Yeah,
Is this
that's
victim.
exactly right.
But
Exactly. Yeah,
which is,
that's primarily an American thing.
yeah, that I bet it is primarily an American thing. Well, what can you tell us about I wanted to ask you this just on a more personal note, but years ago, I read some of the work of Cyrus Parsa talking about um, AI and the dangers of AI and the extreme. And I heard about 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, that he was
He died.
found dead. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I heard he was found dead, shot through the head. Uh,
yeah.
uh, do you know anything about that? Can you confirm
I
that?
was
And
notified of that like 24, 48 hours when it happened.
yeah,
Um, and somebody that knew him quite well called me up and said, "Did you hear about this?" And um, I don't know if it's related to his work or if it was
okay,
something because I don't know all the details around it.
right,
But
yeah, okay, that's fair. Thank
that
you.
that I don't know all the details around it entirely
Yeah,
to
yeah.
accurately say anything about it.
Well, regardless of how he died, I really appreciated some of his work and his big picture view of the reality of AI and the dangers of it. But what can you tell us about things like a skull to brain technology, things that were uh, 5G, I think to some degree, but definitely 6G, can actually um, pinpoint a unique individual, and the voice of God technology begin to work to where thoughts are being put into their mind that they might assume come from either God or possibly their own thoughts. What?
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
that's to discredit somebody, induce a kind of schizophrenia on them, and
Yeah.
people that I have met in the past have said this, and I've had many people in the last week reach out to me that are suffering from that. So they say, and they say, help me," and it's difficult to respond to because I don't know who they were before it happened, and I don't know who I'm talking to. I
Right.
don't know the pathology. I have to examine all these things to determine what happened to them because, like you mentioned so accurately, so accurately, that a lot of people they want to be victims, even if they're not.
Right.
They'd
Right.
love it. It would give them
Right.
social relevance,
Right.
and that's part of the attention economy is having social relevance, and
Yeah.
it's a new type of dysfunction in human character, especially in U.S. culture. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say to that because a lot of people come to me and I have met people that have experienced this, and
Mhm.
I've said, okay, who's your mental health practitioner you've got to examine because it takes a while to find out uh, what the real story is with the person
Yeah.
because in US culture, at least half the culture are all popping pills
Yeah.
and by the big pharma companies that are already in your brain anyway, screwing
Yeah.
around with you like a biological cocktail. So it
Yeah.
may be that, or it
Yeah.
may be the brain to a computer interface where you have this uh, schizophrenic voice activation comes in clearly, and people assume that that may be telepathy or a higher self or God talking to them,
Yeah.
depending upon how they've been queued up before
Right.
those things are induced. Because those
Yeah.
things are only effective if you prepare the person before it. It's much more useful to use on somebody if you're one of the bad people that intend to, uh, this person, maybe they're going to testify in court, maybe they're a witness to something and they need to help out the legal person, and then their timelines get screwed up because they can't remember, or they suddenly become highly paranoid and they go to their doctor and they prescribe drugs to them and then they're gone.
Yeah.
That person's gone. And this is a
Right.
big problem in the United States. It's a big problem in the United States because they've
Yeah.
been screwing with brain chemistry during MK Ultra, and they put it all into the pharmaceutical industry and mostly the uh, drugs that psychiatrists and other doctors are putting out that are affecting the mind. And they not
Yeah.
only affect the mind, but they work in tandem with Wi-Fi and signals. That there's
Mm.
so you got that whole crowd of people too. So it's very hard to find out where a person's at when they make a claim like that, and they come to me and they say, "Help me," because there's a
Yeah.
whole
Right.
story going on there.
Let me ask you this now, because we know there's, the mad scientist experimentation that's going on, and things that honestly a healthy soul would never even consider. But the do you think that there are active plans to introduce into society certain drugs that are more conducive to manipulating people through like 5G or 6G? In other words, is this plot against humanity to control them and to experiment on them? Is it being woven together with street drugs and pharmaceuticals as part of the experiment to see which
Yes,
people can be easily
yes,
manipulated?
yes.
Wow.
When I first met Walter Bowart, he was part of the deployment of LSD into the United States. He'd been previously working in New York um, for the East Village Other, and he married Peggy Hitchcock Mellon. And the Peggy Hitchcock Mellon uh, rented or purchased Millbrook, where all the LSD experiments were happening. Okay,
Mm.
and this is related to what you asked because it was problematic and for culture at a certain point because LSD had the effect of dissolving perceptual barriers, and
Yeah,
people became much more aware of what was going on in culture, and also they expressed more empathy for other people in general while this was
mm,
going on in the 60s. And of
yeah,
course, if you're going to control a society, we definitely can't have a lot of love and understanding. So, they don't want drugs to do that.
yeah,
They don't
right,
want it to expand your
right,
consciousness. They don't want it to make you healthy. They don't want it to induce states of empathy and all these things. So, uh, when they started to ban all these things, they weren't the war is a war of consciousness, is what I'm trying to say. And
yeah,
some things work in your favor and other things do not. I
yeah,
know all about that because I've been in experiments with it with doctors and people present to understand what those chemicals and things do and how
yeah,
they operate in culture from my own perspective so I could understand them. So
right,
these things are done in tandem with
yeah,
controlling your biology, and your brain is controlling and getting the person essentially addicted to these
right,
type of pharmaceutical things that work in tangent with electromagnetic fields and radio signals, which was
yeah,
all planned. Was all
right.
planned.
It's amazing. Well, we have talked about the idea of Kurzweil's singularity, but how interesting that, of course, I, I think and the listeners probably know that we have really focused on spiritual warfare and what's called deliverance, that just freedom from evil uh, influences. But how interesting that a disembodied evil spirit uh, can have the same kind of effect on people that now radio signals can have. In other words, like for instance, let's take a methamphetamine. We've done a lot of drug rehab. Meth heads act differently, uh, and they have different trigger points. But one thing about a meth head is they are constantly in paranoia about people watching them or manipulating them. Where other drugs, all drugs have negative effects. But it's interesting that without knowing about somebody's drug history, if you come in and listen to their testimony, they say the CIA is spying on me, the FBI, they're following me around in cars. There's some being in my house that's watching me. It's like, okay, well, just out of curiosity, when's the last time you were high on meth, right? Because
Yeah,
that
exactly.
goes along with, with
Yes.
methamphetamine. And you mentioned the unique characteristics of LSD and whatnot. But how interesting that with that singularity now, that things that were in the domain of evil spirits that could manipulate people's mind and emotions and feelings from outside, now there is technology to do the same thing without necessarily any disembodied spirit being involved. They can do it from a 6G tower, right? And it's the
Yes.
same kind of thing, programming thoughts into people's mind, which really, in my understanding, is part of the definition of the singularity. It's now that the
Yes.
spiritual and mechanical and physical
Yep.
and
Yep.
everything's just all come into some kind of a synthesis. Um, I we're going to tie a knot here for this third session, and for our listeners, once you come back, we're going to uh, have a fourth session, and you won't want to miss it. We're going to talk about soul cocooning. We're going to talk about the we've really laid a foundation for this whole mess. It's really a fight between light and darkness, good and evil, and it's a fight over the divine image in mankind. We are made in the image and likeness of God, and there is a whole fallen kingdom that is fighting against that and to bring it into enslavement. And so we're going to talk about those things. But for right now, I want to thank you for being here. Remind you to listen next week to the fourth session. It's going to be a dandy. And I want to, again, thank our guest for being here, James Martinez. It's been very insightful, and we really appreciate you being a brave whistleblower, because there's a lot going on in the world. If you've heard anything in the last three sessions, this is life without margins. There are no margins like maybe I'll do it, when I retire. No, it's life without margins. It's time to show up and to show down and throw down, because it is time to roar.